On October 22nd, 2025, 1:40 p.m., at a luxury hotel in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, hotel staff enter room 1407 for a routine check. What they discover in the bathroom will transform a glamorous influencer's work trip into one of Southeast Asia's most perplexing murder investigations. Inside the bathtub lies 31-year-old Iris Hsieh, a Taiwanese social media star known to her 546,000 Instagram followers as a nurse goddess. But here's what doesn't make sense. The bathtub is completely dry. No water, no steam, no signs of bathing. Yet Iris is dead. Within hours, Malaysian authorities would classify this as a sudden death, possibly cardiac arrest. But 2 weeks later, everything changed. On November 3rd, Kuala Lumpur Police Chief Datuk Fadil Mohammed then made a stunning announcement. This was now a murder investigation under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code, a charge that carries the death penalty. What happened in that hotel room? Why was the bathtub dry? And why is Malaysia's most controversial rapper, a man who was the last person to see Iris alive, now behind bars? This is the story of Iris Hsieh, the nurse goddess who traveled to Malaysia for what should have been a simple collaboration and never made it home. To understand this tragedy, you need to understand who Iris Hsieh really was, beyond the carefully curated Instagram posts and the glamorous modeling photos. Born in Taiwan in 1994, Iris didn't start out chasing internet fame. She was a registered nurse, dedicating years to healthcare in Taiwan's demanding medical system. Her colleagues remember her as professional, compassionate, and deeply committed to patient care. But Iris had bigger dreams. Like many young professionals in the social media age, Iris saw an opportunity to leverage her nursing background into something more lucrative and creative. She transformed herself into the nurse goddess, a brand that combined her medical credentials with beauty, fashion, and lifestyle content. The concept was simple but effective. A real nurse who looked like a model, creating content that was both aspirational and relatable. Her strategy worked spectacularly. By 2025, Iris had amassed over 546,000 followers on Instagram alone. Her content ranged from fashion photography to behind-the-scenes glimpses of her life as a content creator. She also maintained an OnlyFans account, monetizing her image in ways that traditional nursing could never provide. But those who knew Iris personally say the online persona was just one dimension of a complex woman. Her family describes her as health-conscious and fitness-oriented, someone who took care of her body and had no known serious medical conditions. This detail would become crucial when early reports suggested she died of cardiac arrest. In mid-October 2025, Iris received an offer that seemed like the perfect career move, a collaboration with Namewee, one of Malaysia's most famous and controversial artists. For Iris, this wasn't just another sponsored post or modeling gig. This was a legitimate film project with a recognizable name, the kind of opportunity that could elevate her from influencer to entertainer. On October 20th, 2025, Iris boarded a flight from Taiwan to Kuala Lumpur for what was planned as a 4-day working trip. She checked into a hotel in the heart of Malaysia's bustling capital, a city of nearly 2 million people, where gleaming skyscrapers share space with historic temples and vibrant street markets. Iris documented her arrival on social media, posting photos that showed her excited and energized. On October 3rd, she had shared an Instagram photo from Malaysia, teasing the collaboration. Everything appeared normal. Everything seemed like just another business trip for a rising content creator. But within 48 hours of her arrival, Iris would be dead, and the circumstances surrounding her final moments would raise more questions than answers. Hotel staff enter Iris Hsieh's room for what they believe is a routine check. Perhaps she's missed checkout time. Perhaps there's been a maintenance request. But when they open the bathroom door, they find Iris unresponsive in the bathtub. Emergency services are called immediately. But by the time paramedics arrive at approximately 1:44 p.m., just 4 minutes later, it's already too late. Iris Hsieh is pronounced dead at the scene. The initial police assessment seems straightforward. Sudden death, possibly cardiac arrest. A tragic but natural occurrence. A young woman, far from home, struck down by an unexpected medical emergency. But even in those first hours, details emerge that don't quite fit the narrative. First, the bathtub is completely dry. Not damp, not recently drained. Dry. If Iris had been bathing and suffered a cardiac event, there would be water, wet surfaces, evidence of recent use. But there's nothing. The bathtub looks untouched. Second, hotel staff and security begin providing statements about who was in the room with Iris. And one name keeps coming up, Namewee. Yu-hsin, known professionally as Namewee, is 42 years old and one of Malaysia's most recognizable entertainers. He's a rapper, singer, and filmmaker known for provocative, politically charged content. He's been arrested before for sedition over songs that critique religion and race in Malaysia. He's controversial, outspoken, and no stranger to legal trouble. And according to multiple witnesses, he was the last person seen with Iris Hsieh alive. The project they were working on was supposed to be a straightforward collaboration, a music video or film project that would benefit both of their careers. Namewee had the artistic vision and the established audience. Iris had the beauty, the social media following, and the crossover appeal. On the morning of October 22nd, the two were together in the hotel room, discussing the project. According to later statements, they were going over creative concepts, filming schedules, and production details. Everything appeared professional and routine, but something went wrong. Drastically, fatally wrong. Between the morning hours and 1:40 p.m., Iris went from alive and working dead in a dry bathtub. And for the first week of the investigation, authorities treated it as a medical mystery rather than a criminal one. Initial media reports echoed the police assessment: cardiac arrest. Iris's manager initially told press that she had suffered a heart attack, but her family immediately pushed back against this narrative. According to her family, Iris was in excellent health. She was fitness conscious, had no heart problems, no medical conditions that would cause sudden cardiac arrest. Something else happened, and the family was right to be skeptical. As investigators began examining the scene more thoroughly, inconsistencies multiplied. Hotel security footage was pulled and analyzed. CCTV recordings from the elevator, hallways, and lobby were reviewed frame by frame. Who entered the room? When did they leave? Were there any suspicious individuals or unusual activity? Travel records were examined. Who knew Iris was in Malaysia? Who had access to her schedule? Were there any threats, any conflicts, any financial disputes that might provide motive? Staff members were interviewed extensively. What did they see? What did they hear? Were there any disturbances, any calls for help, any signs of struggle? And then there was the question of Namewee. Police had been trying to question him since October 22nd, but he had not immediately made himself available. For nearly 2 weeks, as the investigation slowly gathered momentum, Malaysia's most controversial rapper remained conspicuously absent from the official narrative. But behind the scenes, forensic pathologists were conducting a thorough autopsy on Iris's body. Tissue samples were collected. Toxicology tests were ordered. Blood work was analyzed for drugs, poisons, any chemical substances that might explain her sudden death. And on November 3rd, 2025, 12 days after Iris was found dead, everything changed. Kuala Lumpur Police Chief Datuk Fadil Mohammed didn't call a press conference. His announcement was brief but explosive. The case was being reclassified. This was no longer a sudden death investigation. This was now a murder probe under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code. Section 302, murder. In Malaysia, a conviction under the statute carries one of two possible sentences: 30 to 40 years in prison with caning, or the death penalty. This was now a capital murder case. Fadil's statement was carefully worded but clear. Based on emerging evidence, including inconsistencies at the scene and information from witnesses, we are conducting a comprehensive investigation into the death of Ms. Hsieh as a murder case. He confirmed what many had already suspected. The bathtub where Iris was found was completely dry and showed no signs of recent use. This single detail, the dry bathtub, had transformed the entire investigation. If Iris didn't die while bathing, how did she end up in the bathtub? Was her body moved? Was the scene staged to look like a natural death? And most critically, who put her there? The net was tightening, and there was one person investigators needed to talk to immediately. To understand why Namewee became the primary person of interest in this investigation, you need to understand who he is, and why his involvement in Iris Hsieh's death would raise so many red flags. Yu-hsin, born in 1983 in Muar, Johor, Malaysia, is 42 years old, 11 years older than Iris. He's not your typical pop star. Namewee built his career on controversy, on pushing boundaries, on saying things that made authorities uncomfortable. He first gained notoriety in 2007 with a rap song that criticized the Malaysian education system and contained what many considered inflammatory lyrics about race and religion. He was investigated for sedition, a serious charge in Malaysia that can carry years in prison. But instead of backing down, Namewee doubled down. Over the next 18 years, he released song after song that challenged Malaysian political and social norms. He criticized religious authorities. He made songs about racial tensions. He created content that was often banned in Malaysia, but went viral internationally. Some saw him as a fearless artist fighting censorship and speaking truth to power. Others saw him as a provocateur who courted controversy for attention and profit. But everyone agreed. Namewee was not someone who played by conventional rules. By 2025, he had transitioned from pure music into filmmaking, creating feature films and video content that expanded his artistic repertoire. He was successful, wealthy, and influential, with millions of fans across Southeast Asia. But there were warning signs. Those close to the Malaysian entertainment industry whispered about Namewee's lifestyle. There were rumors, never proven, never substantiated, about drug use, about wild parties, about behavior that didn't match his public persona as a serious artist. And there was his temper. Multiple sources described Namewee as passionate but volatile, someone who could be charming one moment and explosive the next. His political songs weren't just artistic statements. They were expressions of genuine anger and frustration. So when Namewee agreed to collaborate with Iris Hsieh, a Taiwanese influencer with no connection to his political activism or controversial brand, it seemed like an unusual pairing. What was the project? What was the creative vision? And why did it require them to be alone together in a hotel room? These questions would become even more urgent after what happened on November 4th and 5th, 2025. On November 4th, one day after the case was reclassified as murder, Namewee finally broke his silence. He took to social media, Instagram specifically, and posted a statement in Chinese that sent shockwaves through the investigation. According to Namewee's statement, "I will fully assist with a police investigation. I have nothing to hide. I will not run. I am innocent of any wrongdoing, and I did not commit any drug offenses or have any involvement in Iris's death." The statement was defensive, preemptive, as if Namewee already knew what was coming, and he was right to be worried. The next day, November 5th, 2025, Namewee voluntarily surrendered to police at Kuala Lumpur police station. He was accompanied by his lawyer, Joshua Tay, and told authorities he was ready to provide a full statement about October 22nd. But when police searched Namewee and tested him, they made a devastating discovery. He tested positive for multiple controlled substances: amphetamines, methamphetamine, ketamine, THC, for different drugs in his system. This wasn't recreational marijuana use. This was a cocktail of powerful stimulants and dissociative drugs, substances that can cause paranoia, aggression, impaired judgment, and dangerous behavior. Namewee was immediately arrested, not for murder, but for drug possession and use. He was remanded for 6 days, meaning he would be held in custody until approximately November 11th while investigators built their case. And then, in a move that shocked even his most devoted fans, Namewee did something almost incomprehensible. While in police custody, facing potential murder charges and confirmed drug violations, he released a new song. From behind bars, Namewee managed to get new music published online. The song had nothing to do with the case, nothing to do with Iris. It was as if he was trying to maintain his artistic output, his public image, his brand, even as his life was falling apart. The reaction was swift and brutal. Fans who had offended him as a free speech warrior now questioned his judgment and priorities. Media outlets called it tone-deaf, callous, and evidence of a man disconnected from the gravity of the situation. But beyond the PR disaster, Namewee's drug use raised critical investigative questions. If he was using methamphetamine and ketamine on October 22nd, and given a positive test on November 5th, it's highly likely he was. How did that affect his behavior? Methamphetamine can cause aggression, paranoia, and unpredictable violence. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic that can impair memory and judgment. Could a drug-induced altercation have led to Iris's death? Could Namewee have harmed her during a paranoid episode and then not fully remember what happened? And there was another detail investigators couldn't ignore. When police initially examined the hotel room on October 22nd, they found something disturbing: 9 blue pills near Iris's body. These pills were suspected to be drugs and sexual stimulants, though exact identification was pending lab analysis. Were these pills Namewee's? Did he give them to Iris? Did she take them willingly? Or were they administered without her knowledge or consent? The toxicology report on Iris's body, still pending as of November 6th, would be crucial. If her system showed the same drugs found in Namewee's tests, if there were high levels of sedatives or stimulants, it could provide the missing piece of the puzzle. But even with Namewee in custody and the investigation intensifying, there were no murder charges. Not yet. Police were being methodical, building an airtight case before formally accusing anyone of killing Iris Hsieh. The evidence was mounting. The timeline was solidifying. But one question remained unanswered. What exactly happened in that hotel room? Reconstructing the final hours of Iris Hsieh's life requires piecing together evidence, witness statements, forensic analysis, and the investigative timeline. While Malaysian authorities have not released a complete narrative, and may not until trial, we can assemble a probable sequence of events based on available information. Sometime in the late morning or early afternoon, Iris and Namewee are together in a hotel room. They're ostensibly working on their collaborative project, discussing concepts, reviewing materials, possibly filming preliminary footage. According to Namewee's later statements, this was a professional meeting. There were no conflicts, no arguments, no red flags. Just two content creators collaborating on a project. But we know now that Namewee had multiple drugs in his system. We know that 9 blue pills, suspected drugs and sexual stimulants, were found near Iris's body. And we know that within hours of this professional meeting, Iris would be dead. What investigators believe, though this remains unconfirmed, is that at some point, the situation deteriorated. Perhaps Iris ingested the pills voluntarily, thinking they were something else. Perhaps they were given to her, without full disclosure of what they contained. Perhaps there was coercion. The effects would not have been immediate, depending on the substances involved. It could take 30 minutes to an hour for full impact. Iris might have felt dizzy, disoriented, increasingly impaired. If the pills contained powerful sedatives or opioids, her breathing could have slowed. Her heart rate could have become irregular. And if Namewee was impaired by methamphetamine and ketamine, drugs that can cause paranoia, aggression, and dissociation, he might not have recognized the danger until it was too late. Did Iris collapse? Did she lose consciousness? Did she call for help, only to be ignored or dismissed by someone too intoxicated to understand the severity of the situation? At some point, we don't know exactly when, Iris Hsieh died. Her heart stopped, her breathing ceased, and someone made a decision about what to do with her body. The dry bathtub is the key. If Iris had died naturally or accidentally in the main room, the logical response would be to call for emergency help immediately. But instead, her body was moved to the bathroom and placed in the bathtub, a bathtub that showed no signs of water, no signs of use. This suggests staging, an attempt to make the death look like something it wasn't. Perhaps the hope was that authorities would conclude she drowned while bathing, or that she had a medical event while in the tub. But whoever moved her forgot one crucial detail. They didn't actually run any water. It's a detail that speaks to panic, to impaired judgment, to someone not thinking clearly. And it's the detail that transformed this from a potential accident into a murder investigation. According to some reports, though these remain unconfirmed, Namewee may have attempted CPR before emergency services arrived. If true, this raises complicated questions. Was he genuinely trying to save her? Or was CPR an attempt to explain away any physical evidence, bruising, injuries, that might appear suspicious? On November 5th, when Namewee surrendered to police, he was arrested on drug charges. But investigators have made clear that the murder investigation is ongoing and that they expect to make an arrest soon. As of November 6, 2025, Namewee remains in custody, remanded for 6 days on drug possession and use charges. But the murder charge, the Section 302 charge that carries the death penalty, looms over him like a storm cloud. The evidence is substantial. The timeline is damning. And unless toxicology reports reveal something completely unexpected, Malaysian prosecutors appear to be building toward a capital murder charge against one of the country's most famous entertainers.